hi everybody who's here, and hi everybody on Instagram. Thank you all for coming. My name is Nicole Giordano, and I'm the founder of StartUp Fashion. And we are thank you for the thank you, Victor. We are a resource and an online community for independent designers, as you all are trying to figure out how to build and grow these businesses in an industry that is not easy, but a lot of fun and very much worth it. So we are a membership-based community. I see a lot of members in the audience, and if you're not a member yet and you think you would like to learn more about it, talk to the people who are members, because they're the ones who will be able to tell you honestly what it's like. Thank you, Maya. Yeah, raise your hand.
Raise your hand.
Yes. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Okay, so before we get started, I wanted to thank Pump and Whimsy, the amazing drink sponsor for tonight. I don't know if you all, I see some of you have tried it. Isn't it so good? So Pump and Whimsy is a woman-owned, women-run gin liqueur brand, and it tastes amazing, and tonight they're serving gin and tonics, but it's kind of like a light take on a gin and tonic. It's so nice. So
it's a warm hug.
Yes, exactly. So thank you, Pump and Whimsy, for being a part of our event tonight. We all really appreciate it. So, okay, so you know why you're here, to talk to Daniel, to hear Daniel speak.
Latecomers.
Latecomers, that's quite all right. Come on in. So thank you, Daniel, for doing
Yes,
this
of course.
and for chatting with
Thanks
us
for
about
coming.
your story and everything that you do. So, okay. So I was excited to come up with questions for you because your story is so interesting, and I wanted to hear about, before you launched the KIT.
Yes.
So we're going to get into the KIT and all the amazing things you're doing as the founder of the KIT right now.
Got it.
But I would love to hear
Backstory.
back. So where, the first iteration of what it was to be a designer and what you were doing, and but like your mindset, how you were feeling, everything that sort of was going on when you had that traditional fashion line, and how you wanted to be feeling instead, and what you wanted to be doing instead.
The longer you ask the question means it's going to be a 15, 20 minute answer.
Sorry.
So if you want to add it on.
All right. Okay, I'm done. Go ahead.
Real quick poll. Who here is an actual fashion designer? Raise of hands. And who has an actual business up and running now? Okay. I'm surprised you all made it out. This is like one of those moments where you're like, I never leave the studio this early,
right?
unless.
Yes.
So.
I heard a few of those stories, like I made it, but I ran.
I know, I ran here. Okay. Okay, so in that case, I feel like this is going to be one of the first audiences, first groups where I'm going to be talking directly, and I'm going to be getting a lot of nods throughout this whole thing. Throughout this entire hour, however long we have to talk, it does have a happy ending, which is great. Okay? So, buckle your seatbelts. Okay, so similar, probably very similar circumstances to many of you. Had a dream of becoming a fashion designer. I grew up in West Michigan. I didn't know a single fashion designer. Studied architecture and wanted to figure out if this could be a legitimate career. So started at local community college, kind of taking a sewing course, and it just clicked to me, like I'm sure many of us had, where you're kind of navigating a world that you don't really get, but there's pieces there that you're pulling together. So I ended up just kind of auditing the class because there wasn't even a fashion design degree. My mother's office manager and my dad's a mechanic. Like we didn't have a big budget for me to just go to Parsons or any of the Central St. Martin's or anything. So it started off at 18, 19 was the beginning of me building something that didn't exist. And I look back at my time years later thinking how important that time was when you're searching for answers and you're like, if you don't have it and you don't have it, well then I guess there's no right or wrong way to do it because no one's there to tell you. So I look back very fondly at struggling to figure out how I become a fashion designer. So I ended up just auditing the same course 6 semesters in a row, and basically the professor, who's still a very dear friend of mine and like a grandmother to me now, was like, just sit in the back. Like, sit in the back, and because like community college, it's relatively cheap, so I literally would just store all my fabrics. I ended up like creating, I'm sure like many of us, like local fashion shows that then kind of ballooned, and then you're getting local coverage, and you're like, oh, I'm such a big fish in the small pond. And it was, honestly, I look back very fondly at it, because I still have community that I built back then has stayed with me. So after the first 2 or 3 years, you're starting to figure out a plan. I like this can become a career. Where do I go? Okay, New York. As we all, yeah, I had a dream. So I ended up doing the 2-year associate program at FIT, which is where you do 2 years in 1 year, and lost 10 pounds, which I didn't need to lose, and was like, whoa, this is intense, but loved it, because I was finally around people that were thinking the same way I was for the first time in 20 years, and it was exhilarating, and I loved it. I was like, okay, my designing is becoming a little bit more well-rounded. Let's do the next phase, which is once it leaves my studio, how does it get to the actual customer? So Daniel, start building your bank of knowledge. So we worked at a Couture showroom there that sold like all of the main sublines of all the European brands. So like Versace down to like Versus and DDDDD, to Dolce & Gabbana, to D&G, etc. Everyone turn around really quick. That's Joe, my partner. Hey, Joe! Yes, he's trying to be very sneaky. And so it was a very interesting position to be in, because for years I'd been of the intention of, if you design it good enough, of course people are going to buy it.
Right.
Of course,
You don't have to do anything after
you don't
that.
do anything. My job as a designer is done.
Right. I'm a designer.
Well, we all know. Yeah, exactly. Like, we all know that that's not the case.
Right.
If you believe the good press, you have to believe the bad. And it was a beautiful thing of like, why do you do what you do? Who are you doing it for? Because if you believe when everyone says, that is so gorgeous, I love it, it's amazing, if you believe that, then you have to equally believe everyone who says that you're shit. And I hate it, and it's the stupidest, ugliest thing in the world. So that callus that was able to form over me in a way that protected my design was a very, very, very valuable lesson in the fact that we are not artists only. We are artists who are business people, that have to be business people, or our job is not done when it's hanging on our rack. It has to be hanging on their rack. Right. I became very aware of the blind spots and the weaknesses that I had, which I think is very difficult for a designer, for a creative. And I said, well, I don't know how to build a business plan, and that seems like it should be important. Who do I know? Well, my family, although not extremely well off, is extremely smart. So we have a family financial advisor, and I said, Gary, if you're doing planning for my family, I was like, I want to start a business. Can you help me? Sure. Can I give you 1% of a future company that might exist, and can you give me all the labor for free? Yes. Great. By the time I launched 5 years later, I had a lawyer, a financial advisor, a CPA, a CEO locked in on a dream.
Wow.
And it was because I was able, very patiently, to start building my roster. And you need patience. And people who aren't banking on you, but where it becomes, I don't need you, but it became, I need, let me how to summarize this. The difference in asking someone to help you because you're weak is very different than asking someone for guidance because you're moving forward. I'd like your advice. Could you give me your perspective? And
that's a good way of phrasing it.
And I think it's very different than I need help.
Yeah.
And again, I realized that very early on, that people are so much more willing to help if you just kind of rephrase it. You've been at the wrong job for just a little too long, and you know it, but you don't know what to do. You just know that what you're doing isn't the right thing. And it's the fucking scariest thing in the world to say, I know that I'm not doing the right thing, but I don't know which way to go. So this is my second biggest pivot point in my entire career, which is if you walk away from anything, is the biggest, most important thing that happened to me, is I took the table and I fucking flipped it over. And it was the scariest thing in the world. Crazy goosebumps.
Yeah.
Goosebumps analogy. Is because I remember I hung up the phone with my PR company and I turned around and I said, team, we're taking a pause. And they were like, what do you mean? And I was like, I don't know. I just know that we're not going to produce this collection. And they were like, do we have jobs? Because they need, your face right now is so intense. Because they relied on me for rent, for food, for their lives. I mean, like, these people had taken a chance on me as a nothing. So, but I realized that I didn't want to be 40, I didn't want to be 50, I don't want to be fucking 60 and hate my life. I didn't want to say, like, I'm doing this for you, and I didn't want to do it for you, and I needed to get something out of this, because when you're working 16-hour days all weekend, who are you doing it for? And if I'm doing it for someone else, as opposed to doing it for me and someone else, that's a different story. Flipping the table allowed me the one thing that fashion never allows you, which is time. It allowed me to just quiet the fucking voices and the schedule and the demand and all of it, and just simply say, like, what do you want to do with your life? So those first 3 months was one of the hardest in my professional life, because I didn't want to make a fear-based decision. And this is where it gets very Oprah. Is that, like, I didn't want to make a gut reaction because I needed to make a reaction.
Yeah.
So, and the other phrase I give is, like, I wanted to sit in the shit. I wanted to sit in it, and it's fucking uncomfortable. And it's so horrible, and you're getting judgment, but again, like that callus that had built up, I'm like, Daniel, do it for you. Like, ignore even the mentors, like, ignore your family, ignore everything. What do you want in your life? So first 3 months, then 3 to 6 months, stuff starts to go back on the table. Daniel, do you still like New York? Do you want to try another city? It goes back on the table. Do you still like fashion design? Yes. Because I might go into filmmaking. I might go into something else. Like, I don't want a decision to be made for me. What do you want out of your life? So, do you still like wholesale? Not necessarily. Do you like interacting with customers? Yes, I don't do enough of it. Do you love technology? Absolutely, I don't have enough of it in my life. So basically, I started to cultivate what went back on Daniel's table without thinking that I needed to hit certain things.
Yeah.
Quieting the noise. What business do you want? What life do you want?
Yes, and I always say that, and my members will know this. I always say you have to figure out the life you want and build your business around it.
That.
You cannot try to shove a business or a
It's never gonna happen.
after you've built this business, because you'll find yourself in that way. Like, what the hell, I did this backwards because I'm not happy. I thought I was going to be happy, but I didn't take any time to figure out, well, what is it that I want for my life, and then build around that.
And then you either start to resent something or yourself.
Yep.
You start to regret something or yourself. And
you can resent the business. You're just like, oh, like, I hate you.
Which
Why am I
we know.
doing this? Right.
Which we know. And I remember distinctly this like Garmento that we used to buy fabric from, and I'm like, why do you hate me?
Right.
Why do you hate me? And I'm like, I don't want to be you. I don't want to be you. I'm like, we're in a career, you guys, that literally is meant to bring people happiness and joy. And I'm like, why are you such a bitch?